happen. So the two main things that obviously I asked everyone to do last week were find a structure with their food in terms of deciding how many times a week they're going to eat and what sort of how many times a day they're going to eat, like breakfast, lunch, dinner, snack, and obviously what days and time they're going to train. Was everybody sort of happy with that, understood it? Let me know either like just a Y or an N in the comments box if you have sort of happy with that, or you need any help with the structure on that. Good. Yeah, happy. Good. The reason why I want people to do that is because once you've got that sort of structure and you're in good routine, it's hard for you. You start learning about sort of flexibility later down the line, because you'll start realizing your normal breakfast is in and around 300 calories. Your normal dinner's in and around 500 calories. So if you fancy something a little bit different, it's like I can change up my breakfast for 300, for anything that's basically 300 calories, the same as what you can do. But the first thing you want to get is structure, routine. See if the numbers that you are hitting currently work. If they are working, good, you know them numbers work. And it also helps with like when you sort of go back into maintenance phases. So you've always got that sort of structure there. So it's really important to get that sort of nailed from the off. Next thing was something that came up quite a bit, was the difference between my coaching log and my fitness pal. Why there's a discrepancy. I've mentioned it before. The discrepancy between my fitness pal and my log is my fitness pal uses rounding. So for example, it was 7.2 grams of protein. My fitness pal would round it up. So for example, if you followed my macros and it puts your calories just that little bit too high on my fitness pal, don't stress. It's okay. That's absolutely fine. I would rather you follow my macros. So if it does go slightly over, that's cool. So don't stress. The reason for that is I change your targets on my spreadsheet. I don't go into your MyFitnessPal and change. So as long as we're following the targets on my spreadsheet, that's where it changes. And each week, obviously, the changes will be done on there, which makes the adjustments make sense. And then same with alcohol. Just be aware, because when you put things in with alcohol, alcohol is its own calorie. So if you have, say, for example, 1,500 calories worth of food and 500 calories of alcohol, it will say 2,000 calories on MyFitnessPal, but because alcohol is its own macronutrient like carbs, fat, and protein are, it won't work out on my spreadsheet. So just put in the comments that you had alcohol on top, and that's why it's not tracked. So, and also the cardio tab. I see some people putting in the cardio tab, like their cardio for the whole day. So I'm assuming they wear Apple Watches. Cardio is your specific session. So for example, you wouldn't, an Apple Watch, every time your heart rate goes like above 120, it counts how many times your heart rate's been in that cardiovascular zone. But the cardio tab on my spreadsheet is for it to be filled out as if you've done a specific cardio session, e.g. like a 5K run, a cycle, a swim, etc., etc. So does that make sense in regards to the cardio tab? Anyone not understand that? No one actually has cardio targets yet. It's some people like to do cardio, and then if they do cardio, I monitor it. So for example, if you've done a 30-minute incline walk and you burn 200 calories, you just put 200 calories in there. If you've done no specific cardio that session and your watch said you burnt 780 calories of cardio that day, you wouldn't put it in. Does that make sense? Someone just give me a yes or a no in the comments. Yes. Okay, cool. So today's sort of topic is all things nutrition. I will cover the best part of what nutrition is, the roles of each macro, carb v fat targets. Do you need to hit carbs and fat targets? And then we'll sort of go down like why we hit protein first, and why I've been saying to them, make sure you get your protein. Why I always hear people say, hit your protein, and get your protein snacks in. Because does anyone actually know this? I want to make these calls a little bit, how's it say it? less wanky in terms of it's not a lesson. You're not here to get an absolute lesson on protein, carbs, and fats. It's an open discussion, but if we give a little bit of background as to what protein, carbs, and fats do, it will make more sense as to why I say get your protein in. So does anyone know the role of protein? Feel free to unmute yourself and speak up. There's no, well, there is a right and wrong answer, but there's no stupid answer. Let's go with that.
Satiety.
Yeah, one of the biggest factors for protein. So I'll translate that for you, Stephen. He said satiety, which means it keeps you fuller for longer. So basically 100 calories of protein, also by the time it's digested, is the equivalent of 70 calories because of the thermogenic effect of food, meaning your body works harder to digest protein. Therefore, it burns the calories digesting them calories in a roundabout way. And that is what helps keep you fuller. But the main sort of reason we hit protein when we're training, and weight training especially, is protein's there to rebuild and repair the muscle tissue. So after water, the body is made up primarily of protein. So it's necessary to have a high protein diet when weight training and fat loss, because if you think of yourself as, if we started at 50% fat and 50% muscle, and we started a diet phase and we lost weight, but we weren't weight training and eating enough protein, you could be 100 kilos, 50% fat, 50% muscles. You could be 70 kilos, 50% fat, 50% muscle. You're still 50% fat. So the idea on a fat loss journey is to keep your protein and your muscle as much as you can. So when the fat loss coming down, you're now 60-40 in favor of muscle to fat loss, 70-30. And obviously the leaner and leaner you get, the more muscle you keep, the lower your body fat percent, the more aesthetically pleasing you are. Like most people on a weight loss journey, and girls, feel free to shout at me for saying this, probably don't care as much as the scales when they start seeing the physical changes. Everyone likes to see the scales go down, but if I said to you all now, what would you rather see, a lower weight on the scale or a more aesthetically pleasing physique? And you'd probably say more aesthetically pleasing physique, physique. That's why we try and keep as much muscle when we diet on a fat loss journey. So that's why protein, we keep it high, is to make sure, one, we're feeling full and we're keeping as much muscle as possible. That's all you really need to think about with protein, and think about you're keeping that muscle so that your body fat percentage is lower, if that makes sense. And on a diet, it's important to feel full. What's the next most important thing on a diet? That's a bit vague, that question. Right. Anyone know the role of carbohydrates for the body?
Energy?
Yeah, that's literally it, Lily. It's the body's main energy source, and it's simple as that. And even more so when we are like lifting weights, your body's main energy source. So you do have two energy sources. You have your carbs and your fats, but the body's main energy source when lifting weights is through carbs. I'm not going into the details of like the types of energy sources and things like that, but if you think as carbs as energy, and I'm going to come on to the difference between carbs and fats in a minute and why people do keto, etc., etc. So I want to rule out sort of like fad diets and things like that. So I'll just quickly touch on fats first. Does anyone know the role of fats in the body then? So we've got proteins, repair and recovery, carbs is energy, fats. Anyone know? Hormones. Bang on the money, Nicole. That's literally what it's for. So fats, without fats, the body can't function properly. And the role of it is the production of hormones. If you think of fats as you're making your body work properly, which I'm going to ask this question, and people always say, put in the group actually, what's the calorie target in terms of like numbers, in terms of like 1,000, 1,100, 1,200, 1,300, what's the magic number which everyone says if you go below that on a diet, you're pushing it too much? What's the number that all the fitness pros you always feel like?
1,200. Wait,
Yeah.
have I muted? 1,200.
Yeah, I heard Emily say it as well. For me, I don't get why it is. What's the difference between 1,000? So if you ate 1,199 calories, that's you're causing yourself harm. But if you ate 1,201, you're safe. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't make sense. It's just a made up number for people to use for marketing. And it's as simple as that. And then I beg the question here is, what would you say is more dangerous to your body, yeah, dieting on 1,000 calories for 6 to 8 weeks, or dieting on 1,200 calories for a year?
Yeah.
So we all agree dieting on a lower amount for a year. So the reason low calorie diets get such a bad name, and low calorie low calorie targets get such a bad name, is because of the suspended period. So more as again, girls, like, your periods stop if you've probably been on a low amount for a sustained period of time. Within 6 to 8 weeks, you're probably not going to stop hormone production. So that's why things like ELIMIN8 can happen. And that's exactly why I put the reverse diet numbers on weeks 9 and 10, is to make sure we don't stop that hormone production. And it's why it's important for you guys at the end of ELIMIN8 to bring your calories back up. Men, I've only got Josh, Steve, and Jack on the call. If you diet for long periods of time, think of like low testosterone, sex drive, etc., etc. That all goes really. That's the first thing that will go when you've been dieting for sustained periods of time. So girls think fats for periods, and boys think of it as like hormone production, sex drive, etc., etc. And that's why it's better to do things more aggressive in 6 to 8 weeks rather than sitting on a slightly higher amount, and I mean slightly higher, for a year. So that's what that is covered. Right. So you've probably noticed on, also stop me if anyone wants to ask me questions on any of them things, or wants me to provide more information on like fats, carbs, fats, or anything like that, please just stop me and ask a question. But the main thing is carbs, these fats. So part of eliminating, what I want to do is get rid of like the fad diet. So who here's tried a fad diet such as Atkins, 5-2, keto? Put in the chat which ones you've tried. Don't be shy. We've all tried them. I've tried carb backloading. I've tried keto. I've done them. So there's no shame in saying you've tried one of the fad diets. I'm sure it isn't the first diet you've all tried. Eliminate keto. No one's ever tried anything else. Only Amira. Right. Yeah, slim fast. Thanks for speaking up, Olivia. So all these fad diets, right? They're just a market in intermittent fasting. Yeah. So we've all probably tried, or we've all ran ourselves low on calories before. So basically, we all should know by now that the only way for a diet to work is to be a calorie deficit, right? So as long as you're in a calorie deficit, you'll lose weight. If you tell me you're in a calorie deficit and you're not losing weight and you're not going through what's called a recomposition, you're not in a calorie deficit. It's science. There's nothing you can really do which goes against that. You're just not in a calorie deficit. It doesn't mean you're not eating low calorie. I'll explain later on in ELIMIN8 why your body sort of plateaus on low calories, but we'll come to that. So the reason keep things like keto, slim fast, intermittent fasting work is you're creating a calorie deficit. Will I sit here and say keto doesn't work? No. What's the problem with keto, apart from the fact none of us ever want to go through our life without ever having pasta or pizza, etc. again, is energy. So the reason you initially lose weight on something like keto is you have a big drop in carbs, which carbs holds 3 grams of water for every gram. So you go and take out all your carbs, you're dropping a large portion of weight. But when the weight comes down and then that initial water is lost, there's no difference between body fat. So just think of like, and it's the same as when you have a heavy weekend and you go out for a heavier meal, you tend to have more carbs, therefore your body's holding on to more water. But remember that water isn't body fat. And who here's had a heavy weekend, gone to panic and thought, geez, my weight's gone up, and then by Wednesday it's back down to where it was? A few nods on camera. I'm sure we've all been there. Yeah, Zoe. Yeah, I know that one too well, don't we, Zoe? But like we panic, and that's because our weight's just holding on to water. So coming down to and like ruling that sort of fad diets out and why keto sort of works and why it does work is because of that. It's because it drops that water retention. Same with intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting is probably one of the only ones I do sort of agree with, because you're just narrowing down the time you eat. So, for example, if you've done 12 till 8, it works because you're only eating through that sustained period. But if I asked you the question now and I said, would your body stop losing weight if you ate at 11:59, Stephen? Would it change any difference? No. So it's the same thing. So why 12 o'clock? Why 8 o'clock? It's more just to narrow down the gap of the time you're eating more than it is actually like a magic way your body digests food. So yeah, there's not, but the reason I sort of agree with it is because, again, it narrows down the time you can eat. And if you can only eat so much during that window, you're only going to eat so much. But on the flip side, if we start thinking about energy balance, do you know what I mean? So if you think about, if you were to work out in the morning fasted with no energy, is that better than working out with energy and sticking to your calories for the day? You're going to work better when you've got your energy sources. So the reason things like keto and people with the studies on keto is because most of these studies are done on general population. So all the fat targets. So when we're talking about carbs and fats before, all the studies, like your body uses fat. So as we're sitting here now, as you're walking around doing your daily activities where your heart rate's under that 120, which I was talking about, you're probably using your body's energy, your fat sources. Fat sources it gets from food, and then fat sources it's got as reserved body fat. And then obviously when you go through your weight training, etc., that's when you use your carbohydrate sources. So the reason I go for high protein, moderate carb, low fat is, one, making sure we feel full on a diet. Two, making sure we've got enough energy to train, because if we've got enough energy to train and we're seeing progression in our weights, we're keeping as much muscle as we can when body fat comes down. And the most important thing on a diet is feeling full and feeling energized. The reason people crash on diet is, one, they either get hungry, or two, they're just feeling like shit basically, and they're like, right, I need some more food to get me feeling that little bit better. So everyone's sort of happy on the roles of carbs, fats, proteins, and why studies have in the past showed why fad diets work. Anyone want to talk about another fad diet? Anyone want me to retouch on anything there? No, all good. So is everyone competent on using MyFitnessPal, how to search foods and how to save meals? Anyone need any support on MyFitnessPal? No. No, everyone's fine on MyFitnessPal. Good. So next thing is, do you need to weigh and track food? My honest answer is no, you don't. If you ate food and didn't weigh and track it, or you ate that same food and weighed and tracked it, will it make any difference to your body? No. Whatever goes in your mouth, your body's going to react well to. Does it make it easier by tracking food? Yes. It's like, and I've used this analogy before, it's like having a sat nav on your car in a new destination. If you had a sat nav, you're probably going to get to your destination a hell of a lot quicker and a hell of a lot easier than if you were to just guess where the destination is. And that is what tracking is. And the more and it's like, do you need to track forever? It comes down to the same question of, the more you drive to that journey, you're going to start remembering how to get there a lot easier. And will it become easier and quicker to get there, even with or without the sat nav? And tracking is the same thing. Is the more you do it, the easier it becomes. And then obviously when you start having like untracked days, or days where you're out and about and you're busy and you can't quite put it into MyFitnessPal, you've already got the knowledge on sort of what foods work and what don't with you and your body. So that's my advice, is track food. Do you need to weigh and track veg? It's going to help. It leaves things not up to chance, not sort of guessing. So the more guesswork you can eliminate, the better you're gonna react. And that's as simple as that. And I always say to people, and if any of you follow me on social media, I've done it a couple of times, like, put the bowl on the surface or put the bowl on the weighing scales. If you've got access to weighing scales, it makes no difference. What is the difference between you putting it on the set of the scales or on the side of the worktop? It makes zero difference to your life. So you might as well just put it in, and it's not obsessive. It just makes more sense. It's, if you're trying to lose weight and your weight's not going down and you're not tracking your food, the first thing I'd say is are you 100% with what's going into your mouth? And if you are, good. But if not, first I'm going to say, well, how do you know? So that's that. If anyone, I know like some people obviously become obsessed with tracking or have had issues with tracking and things in the past. If that is the case, just message me and we'll talk about that separately. But the idea of tracking is it's there to help you and not restrict you. It's there to make sure you can hit your calorie target and obviously stay within your calories but feel full. Which brings me on to this. I'm just going to share my screen quickly. So a lot of you will probably have had the comment, and I'll put it in the group today, about protein first and hitting your protein first and meal prep. So like I said, the reason we touched on protein first and making sure the importance of protein is, one, to keep you full, two, to make sure we keep as much muscle on the diet. So when it comes to sort of meal prep and making meals, what you want to do is always think protein first, then add your fruit and your vegetables to these meals. And then what you can start doing is you can start putting your carb sources in and around your training. So like I said before, if you're going to train and you want to put your carb source in before you train, so you've got a better workout, absolutely fine. If you find yourself busier in the evenings and you prefer carbs in the evenings, that's fine on the diet phase. If you have a family or you have partners which you have dinners with, even if you train like lunchtime or in the mornings, but it makes more sense for you to have your carbs in the evening so you can enjoy a meal with your family, that's fine. Put your carbs in and around lunchtime, and your fats should almost take care of themselves. But this is why I said to you before why you need structure, because if you know you're having breakfast, lunch, dinner, and a snack, you can start breaking your meals down and you can start looking at, right, I know, say, for example, I'm going to use a rounded number here. Say I'm on 120 grams of protein a day and I'm having breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snack. I know that's 30 grams of protein per meal. And then that enables me to start looking at each meal. If I'm breaking it, say I'm only hitting like 80 grams a day, I can start looking at each meal and being like, right, I've only got 10 grams in my breakfast and 10 grams in my snack. They'd be the first two sort of meals that I can change. And then with my main meals, such as my lunch and my dinner, I'd make sure I was hitting that target. I'd maybe even try and push that target up a little bit. And if you're already hitting your protein target for the day, you don't need to have a protein snack. Everyone's like, oh my God, what do I need to have a protein snack? Does it have to be a protein bar, protein shake, yogurts, etc., etc.? If you're hitting your protein target through your main meals, and then you fancy some popcorn or some pop chips or like a little fiber on go bar, whatever it may be, you're more than welcome to have that. It's try and hit your protein first. If you're hitting it and you've got spare calories, I don't care what you do with them calories. If you want to put jam in your porridge or yogurt, feel free. If you want to have a packet of pop chips and you've got the calories to do so, feel free. It's making sure you get that protein. But if you're having all them extras and you're not quite hitting your protein and your weight's not moving in the right direction, the first thing I'm going to say is make sure you're hitting your protein, make sure you're feeling full. Because if you get to 3-4 weeks into a diet, you're like, I'm really hungry, but you haven't been making the most out of your satiety, it's going to come down to, well, make sure you're focusing on what makes you feel full and satisfied first before you start adding in the flexibility. So and that should be that. And what I say is have a look at this page in the welcome pack, and it just does make that meal prep that little bit easier. So even if you were thinking, like I've used this example in the thing I put in the group or in some people's deck, is even if you're fancy porridge for breakfast and you're having oats, your protein source to that might be some whey protein. And it's the same as for lunch. If like, right, I fancy a salad for lunch, don't just think lettuce, cucumber, tomatoes, carrots. Think, right, what's my protein source in that salad? Is it going to be prawns, chicken, tuna, etc., etc.? And then you start working the rest of your meals around it, and then that makes hitting protein instead of calories and feeling full that hell of a lot easier. Any questions on hitting protein? I know a couple people on the call were a little bit low on protein and might not want to speak now, but feel free to if you want to. What's going on here? Anyone? Where's the chat? I'm going to stop the share. Anyone want to talk about protein? No. So all of yous on the call are going to hit the protein bang on next week. No one's going to be short on the front. Good. What's that, Nicole? Yes. What's yes for? Is that protein? You're on mute.
It's helpful. Emily wrote that, but it's fine. I was just struggling to get my protein in, but I've got protein powder now. I just didn't have protein powder.
Yeah. So don't be shy in speaking up, because anyone who speaks up on the call is going to get direct advice. Do you know what I mean? So you're actually more beneficial speaking up. So think about with you, right? Think about looking at each meal. So you had a busy week and you've come back into training and you're trying to get back into routine first. But think about looking at that structure that said breakfast, lunch, dinner, snack, then looking at each meal and seeing where the protein breaks down. So, for example, like you said, if you were having oats, you were just having oats and berries and you thought, right, that's a nice breakfast that keeps me full, but it is low on protein, obviously add something like whey protein or 0% fat Greek yogurt in there. And it's the same with like things like your lunch. If you're only having, say, 75 grams of chicken for your lunch, can you take that chicken from 75 grams up to 125 and automatically your protein portion is going to go up? And that's such a simple thing that's missed. And same with like easiest ways to get protein in are stick to leaner cuts, because you get more calories for you get more grams of protein per calories. Pick lower fat alternatives, so pick like 5% beef mince or like 0% fat Greek yogurt or skinny milk to get more protein per calories and things like that. And then same with fats, it does basically what I just said. Pick the lower fat alternatives, remove yolks from eggs, and don't be scared to add in like the little extra things. So like eat lean cheese is a great one for extra protein. 0% fat Greek yogurt is probably one of the best for snacks alongside the whey protein. And then that should be everything else. But if you've got any other things, make sure to post them in the group. Last thing here, refeed days. Did anyone try run through their refeed this week without taking their refeed? Be honest. Who took it to? Who went?
I tried to take it and didn't do it very well.
What do you mean didn't do it very well? Under 8, over 8?
Under 8. So I had a dinner out and so I was like, oh, brilliant. I'll take that as my refeed day. And then so I had a pizza, not a whole pizza, but I had a pizza and a dessert. And my calories were still within like the normal calorie target. My protein was just a lot lower. So
yeah,
I kind of obviously could have done with having more protein. My carbs were kind of up and my fats were kind of similar. But I felt like it was a little bit of it wasn't a waste of a refeed because I felt like I hit the cravings and I enjoyed the food. But in terms of actually refeeding my body, I don't think I did it very well.
Right. You nailed something there for me, Emily. Who here has cut out a lot of shit, a lot of their things that they enjoy, alcohol, sweets, crisps, food, coffees, milk in their coffees, sugar in their coffees since starting ELIMIN8 without me giving any instructions to cut something out? Be honest, who's cut? How many of you? I've got a lot of nods on the call, right? I've not told anyone to cut anything out. Yeah. The reason you have cut everything out is because you think it's the best thing to do. You want to make sure you're making the most of your calories, which is good. So a refeed is basically there for two things. One, to allow you to enjoy the foods that you like to enjoy. It's more than two things. It's there for you to allow the food you enjoy. So, for example, if you've cut out chocolates, a lot of you have cut out alcohol in the week, but having them extra few calories might allow you. For me, I use it for ice cream, Halo Top, if anyone's on it. So for the week, I'm pretty much straightforward, but at a weekend, I might have like a little bit extra food. It allows me to have a dinner with Amira on a Friday, Saturday night, go out and not feel restricted, etc., etc. So it's there to, one, satisfy cravings, two, allow your social life. None of us in here are bodybuilders just yet. Maybe in 8 weeks' time, some of you might want to step on that bodybuilding stage, but none of you are dieting for something like a photo shoot like I've done in the past. So there's no reason for you to really, really restrict yourself and think for the next 8 weeks, I'm not allowed a meal out, I'm not allowed a beer, I'm not allowed to have a social life. It's there for you to make sure you can still fit in your social life, but obviously not be an idiot. Have some targets in there. Don't completely blow your weekends out of the pan. And it's also there, which one of the most important things is energy balance. So before I was talking about hormones and hormone production, but if you've got one day every single week where you are getting that little bit of extra food, you're probably less likely to go into that sort of state where you are affecting hormones. You're also giving yourself a bit of an energy refeed. So when I was saying before about low calorie diets and why you sort of do maintain weight on a low calorie diet, you'll see today I'm talking a lot with my hands and I'm moving a lot and things like that. That's my body naturally doing what it wants to do. But come 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks into a diet, I'll stop talking with my hands and it almost becomes still. And that's my body trying to achieve what's called homeostasis. It tries to achieve its energy balance. But by giving it a day of extra food, extra calories, it keeps your body ticking and keeps it moving. And it's like that day you've had extra food, you're all ready to like run about and move and things like that. And it's like, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to keep the body moving whilst keeping it in a deficit. So that's why I do want people to take their refeeds. Think of it as like a surge of energy to keep the body moving, because it's like, for example, who here comes in from a day and you've been out on a weekend, you're feeling good, you've had a quiet weekend, but you've ate well. Come and you do the washing, you put all your clothes away, etc., etc. That's your body saying, right, I'm ready to go. And then who's had a horrible day where they've been on their feet all day, knackered, come home, sat down and done. Hannah, you're a good example. Hannah works at the hospital and has some horrible, obviously, night shifts and things like that. The last thing Hannah wants to do when she's come in from a night shift is go and do everything, especially if she's into a diet phase. But if we keep Hannah's energy high, she might go and be like, right, I know I'm on shift tomorrow and I'm going to have a busy day, so I'll get up early. And that getting up early and getting everything done doesn't affect her because she's still got the energy. That's what a refeed's there. Can you split yours over 2 days? Yeah. Being honest, it doesn't really make that much of a difference. If you think I'm giving you 6 days in a deficit, 1 day at maintenance, if you have 7 days in a deficit. So for example, if we talk you're in a 500 calorie deficit, and that 500 calorie deficit is going to make you lose 1% of your body weight a week. If you go into a 250 calorie deficit, you're still going to lose weight. You're still in a deficit. You'd only lose 0.5% of your body weight rather than the 1% body weight. So sometimes what I say to people is if you need to, you're out for 2 socials and you've got a lunch and a dinner, one on Wednesday, midweek and a Saturday, just take the 2 higher days. I shouldn't really tell you that, especially while you're trying to make progress, but just see that day as you're in 5 days in a deficit instead of 7. But I'd much rather you took 5 days in a deficit over crashing complete 1 day thinking you've gone over your calorie allowance. So try and use it. Josh, I know you play a lot of footy. If you've got 2 game weeks, two games in a week, and you've got like a midweek and a weekend game, and you need 2 higher days, I'd much rather you done that than try and run yourself into the ground. I'm doing it for my half marathon training. I get 2 higher days, but obviously you are on an 8-week challenge. Your energy shouldn't be that low. If you can stick to your midweek calories and taking 1 refeed, obviously please do. Save some calories during the week to go extra at the weekend. I would say probably not. For the reason being, Olivia, is remember we want to make the most out of our workouts. So if you start taking more than 100, you're already in a 500, like probably quite an aggressive deficit. So if you are taking extra calories away from that, you're going to run yourself into the ground, be low on energy and crash. That's my honest opinion. If you need an extra 100 or 200, just consider yourself that you would still be in a deficit. Your rate of fat loss will just be slower. And I would much rather your rate of fat loss be slower day on day than you completely crash. Does that make sense? I know you're at work and you can't talk. Just give me a little yes. Yeah. So you don't want, you're already in quite an aggressive deficit, so don't try and take any more from it. I would much rather you kept their energy levels at a decent level. I can talk about nutrition for days on end, because nutrition just goes on and on and on. But what I will do is I will probably leave this call here, and next week we'll talk about meals on the go, eating out at weekends, alcohol, etc., etc. This is probably the most boring call because it's the most informative. But going forward, there'll be more fun, more quizzes, more involvement. But this one is all about giving you an understanding as to why we're doing what we're doing. It isn't the most fun call, and I hate the fact it's so early on within ELIMIN8. But does everyone sort of understand the role of carbs, fats, and protein?
Yes.
Right. So we know proteins for what? Let's go. Two main things.
Muscles and staying full.
Yeah, perfect. Carbs,
Energy.
fats,
Hormones.
sound. We are good to go. So think protein first, then add your fruit, veg, salad, and then your carbs. That's one of the main things that you can take away from this week. Hopefully you understand as to why we're doing it. And I promise the next few calls will be less of a teacher student, and we'll be getting more involved in having just general conversations in and around weekends. So if anyone's got a big weekend coming up next weekend, prepare for it because you're going to get picked on and we're going to use you as an example. Right. Have a lovely evening, everyone, and I will speak to you all next week.
Thanks,
But
Logan.
yeah, any questions?
mate.
Any questions
Thank
before I
you.
go? Any questions? Or you all want to get off and go to bed?
Let's go to bed.
Yeah,
Night.
good.
See you in the
Right.
morning.
Enjoy
Bye.
yourselves. Have a wonderful evening. See you all later.
Cheers, mate.